Teens sitting around a campfire, in their own little worlds, despite being so close to each other. Sam notices this and decides to try to change it, knowing these people do not tend to appreciate or cherish their time together. How about a scary story, guys? Everybody looks at him like he's crazy for trying to initiate some sort of social interaction. Oh, come on, it's just a story, it'll be fun. They begrudgingly turn their attention and bodies toward the center of the fire. Did you guys know that these woods are home to a killer? The group laughed at each other. No, I'm serious. A year ago, a man came to these woods and found a pair of hikers. He watched as they strolled through the trees, laughing and hugging and kissing each other. He decided to take out his knife and kill them both. There is an eerie silence among the group as they began to take it seriously. But he had to wait for them to settle down for the night. When they pitched their tent and got their fire started, he snuck up on the man and slit his throat. The girl screamed and started to run, but he caught her quickly. She screamed for help, squirming around while he pinned her down. She yelled at him, "Stop doing this!" And I said, "But I'm just getting started." The group stops breathing. One of the girls asked Sam, What did you just say?" He stands up and smiles, then takes out his knife. I said, "I'm just getting started." I went camping about 3 weekends ago in the Huntsville National Forest near Texas. Me and 3 friends that came home for that weekend, they were all in college and usually we all get together at least once a year. Old friends from high school and all that. For the camping trip, we planned to go backpacking deep into the forest, live off what fish and other wildlife we could catch. We've been doing this for a while in Texas and numerous places, Arizona, Colorado, if anyone is familiar with the Spanish Peaks there, New Mexico. So we're pretty much used to anything you could encounter out there. It was my turn to pick up where we went camping, so I chose Huntsville. More accurately, it's Huntsville/New Waverly, Anyway, so we drive up to the park in our car and get to the nice spot and start walking off into the forest. We had some laughs along the way, everyone catching up with each other's lives. We walked until it started to get dark and set up camp where we stopped. Everyone gathered wood to make fire and we set our tent up. And we do what we always do. Try to scare each other with weird stories. Around this time, we started to smell something very faint. It was noticeable, but not overbearing. We couldn't put our finger on it. We just couldn't find out what it was. So we just carried on. Mike had to go piss, and he walked off into the forest. A second later, he came running back, piss all down his jeans like he missed really bad. Immediately, we all crack up and throw some jokes at him, but then we noticed that he was white as snow and trying to catch his breath. He starts screaming for us to follow him and runs off. We all get serious and go follow him. Not knowing what the problem was, we started to hear a faint scream and crying in the distance, in the direction where we were running. It was pitch black away from the camp, and Mike had the only flashlight. We left ours back at camp, of course. But anyway, he had to go take a piss, so he only had one. So at this stage, we didn't have much of a choice but to follow the light. It was frantically pointing here and there in front of him. The scream gets closer to Mike, and he starts slowing down. We then noticed a ratty old cabin that looked like it was abandoned except for a faint light that we could see coming from one of the old mildew-covered windows. The crying was intense. Whoever it was couldn't breathe enough to let out a full yell. We followed Mike up the front door, and we could all hear the crying from inside. As soon as he knocked on the front door, it stopped. We all waited and heard really heavy footsteps walking fast to the door. There was a giant slam against the door and the sound of the bolt locking. Then nothing. We waited for a bit, knocked a few times, but still nothing happened. We walked around the house. There was no fucking way any of us were leaving each other's side. And we noticed a window, which was a good ways up, but anyway, Alex took a deep breath and asked us to give him a boost. So we did. Me and Mike lifted him up to the window. We watched as he brushed away dirt and webs from the window and placed his face close to the window, trying to see anything, something at least. There was a quick beat, then suddenly he breathed in fast and let out a loud scream, then fell back from the window, screaming bloody murder the whole way. We all tried to calm him down, but he was hysterical. We went to him, but he just started to shake, punch, kick, cuss, you name it, and then he just took off towards camp. None of us wanted to be separated, so we all ran close behind him. We caught up to him and grabbed him and set him down. The fire was dying, so I grabbed some nearby wood that we collected and added it to the fire. My hands were shaking, and I had to do something. I went back to Alex, and we all tried to calm him down, but he wouldn't. He just kept screaming, and he was breathing so hard that eventually he fainted. All of us are terrified now, and we all kept the fire high until sunrise. Periodically, Alex kept waking up, screaming just like before, but by sunrise he looked catatonic, just mumbling to himself and whimpering. Me and Mike decided to go look at the cabin now. It was daylight, but anyway, we searched where we thought it was, except there was nothing there. Nothing at all, and the indistinct smell from last night had grown into a very strong smell of something dead and stale. We headed back to the camping site. When we got there, we found Alex had chewed into the sides of his face and was swallowing so much blood that he was throwing up. John was at his back, and he looked like he was about to die from exhaustion. I guess we all looked that way. I didn't notice it until I saw his face. Alex said quietly that we need to leave, now. We all started to pack up the tent, and it started to rain really heavily. It was about noon at this point, and the sky started to grow really dark. Alex started to go into a panic. He went and grabbed a large stick and yelled at us to leave it, and then he'd knock us out or drag us there himself. Mike started to yell at him, and then they started to fight. We broke it up, and we finished packing, and then we started to make our way back. After a little while, we arrived at a creek that we had crossed the previous day, only it flooded over. The water was moving too fast for us to cross. Alex started to scream again, yelling at Mike for taking his time packing up the tent when we could have gotten out of there. This went on for a while until we finally convinced Alex to calm down and tell us what happened. He said as soon as he put his face against the glass, a face was on the other side and did the same thing, and it started to smile really big. It had dark eyes and a dark mouth which was bigger than Alex's. As the smile got as large as it could, a giant shadow behind it swung something down and sliced its face off. The face was stuck to the window, and he said it started to laugh quietly as it slid down. Mike, still pissed off, and though he wouldn't admit it, beginning to get freaked out, started to argue with him again. We eventually started to follow the creek for a way to cross. And then we started to see toys floating in the creek. Really old toys. Old Barbie dolls and baby dolls. This wasn't like any old trash floating in the creek, though. This was a lot of Barbies. A lot of baby dolls. One washed towards the side, and Mike picked it up. It had some kind of voice chip that was dying and started to say some gurgling words that we couldn't understand, followed by a sad excuse for laughter. Then it sounded like it was whispering. We thought the batteries must be dying, and then he threw it down. We kept going, and the sun was starting to set. Alex was freaking out more now, and was whimpering and breathing heavily. We all started to see shadows moving behind trees, something we called BS on until we were all seeing it. It was barely light out, and we had to stop. So we see the cabin was right in front of us. None of us knows what to do, what to think. Mike says, this is bullshit. I'm going there. Alex tries to stop him. We all do, but he just wanted to go home. We all just wanted to go home. Mike says to all of us to fuck off, do our own thing. He doesn't care anymore. This is all bullshit. We started to hear hundreds of the same sort of baby dolls as before, laughing, whispering, and trying to sing. We started to move forward past the cabin, all of us, and kept pushing forward. We smelled something dead in the air, something stale. The same something as before. We started to hear something dying, something crying, something screaming. We kept going. We eventually crossed the creek and left the woods. We get back to our vehicle and got in. By now it's pitch black and we drive. We are about to get on the 45 to Houston, but the road is under construction and it can't be accessed. It points to a detour. As we head towards the detour, it seems to be small, bumpy roads going into the woods. We then see a young girl come up to us. She looked like she was in trouble, young, pretty. She approaches the passenger side and looks like she's really drugged up or beaten up. Alex doesn't roll down the windows, nor does he open the door. She reaches for the handle and he immediately locks it. She puts her face on the window and starts to smile really, really big. And so we floor it. Alex starts to cry and scream and we all begin to breathe heavy. We finally cut and take a street that takes us up to the 45 and we take it the whole way. When we get back to my apartment, everyone doesn't know what to say and we all break apart and go our separate ways. Mike messages me later and he says he's going to go back. I try to convince him not to, and all he does is say it was our own mind screwing with us. I think he just wants to prove to himself he wasn't scared, but I can smell that stench everywhere now. I don't go out anymore. I just stay in, and I don't answer the door. Last week, everyone I met was acting really strange. People that I knew for a long time, and total strangers. My own dad, when I went to his place to eat supper with him, he just watched me strangely when I was sitting down. He didn't say a word the whole time. I kept asking him, "What's wrong?" And he just slowly shook his head. When I was leaving to go home, I turned to wave. He had black eyes and an open mouth like he was in pain. When I started to walk back, he shut the door and bolted it. I stayed there knocking and knocking. Nothing. I called him. His phone was disconnected. I even called the police. Halfway through the questions they were asking me, the connection started to get faded and staticky. I could hear a faint mumbling, and then singing and laughing. Mike has completely vanished at this point. There is not even a record of him being alive. When I call Alex's house, they talk to me like I'm some sort of salesperson. They say they don't know any Alex and to please stop calling. The person who tells me that is Alex's mother. I can't get a hold of John. Someone knocked on my door and when I looked, someone knocked on my door. When I went to look, I saw a face completely covering the peephole and a giant smile started to form. "Sir, are you affected by any drugs at the moment?" "No." "Are you coming home anytime soon?" Excuse me?" "Come home." And then the phone call ended. My mail slot swings open every now and then. Someone's sliding in pieces of baby dolls through it. I try to call people now and all I can hear is static and bad baby doll noises and this crying and screaming. My TV is busted, but when I go to piss, I can hear it on. I might be going insane. Whoever lives above me started to scream in pain and crying deeply recently. I hear giant footsteps from their apartment. I hear bangs and something falling to the ground. From the neighbors to the right of my apartment, I hear what sounds like a baby that never gets tended to. And then it sounds like a baby whose battery is... And then it sounds like a baby doll whose batteries are dying. My phone has been ringing now, and it's Alex telling me things in a language that I've never heard before, nor could even manage to repeat. I keep getting emails of pictures of black and small colorations. Now I can't even access my email. Someone knocks on the door, then they slam against it. I hear the bolts unlocking one by one, and I run to make sure they're all locked. And then I just sit down. And I begin to cry. I was camping in the woods one time with a friend. These woods were in Highland Hammocks, a campground in Florida. We got there late at night, probably around 9 or 10 o'clock. Anyway, my friend started up a propane lantern and I set up the tent. There were other people camping around us, but we didn't really seem to bother them too much. Once the tent was up, we put our stuff inside. My friend went inside first, but I paused to look out into the woods, because, well, I swore I heard something ulating. But I shook it off, knowing it was probably just a raccoon or a wild boar. Both of us couldn't go to sleep, however. He, because of his ADHD, and, well, I had drunk too much Red Bull earlier. So we sat there in our sleeping bags, passing the time. We talked about what most boys our age talk about. We started off talking about attractive girls in our school. Man, there were some fine girls at my school. Anyway, then my friend mentioned Slipknot, and we started talking about music. Real music, like rock and metal bands. We spoke about how Slipknot wears masks, and he and I both thought the concept was great and original. You see, we were thinking of starting a band at the time. Well, anyway, my friend soon had to heed nature's call, and he went outside to take a piss. I sat there in the tent, and I could hear the stream of urine from far away. I rolled over in my sleeping bag only to feel a root in my back. Damn it, this always happens to me when I go camping. So I shuffled a little bit and got off the root. And well, once I was in a comfortable position, I laid down. Rustling soon could be heard from the bushes behind my tent. When my friend got back, he looked worried. I asked him what was wrong, but he just ignored me, so I decided to continue our conversation. So we sat there, talking. After a few minutes, an adult passed by our tent and told us to quiet down. Well, once we were sure he had left, we continued, but in a whisper this time. Though, soon my friend told me to be quiet. We sat there, we were both listening, and I heard rustling from far away. My friend heard it too. We both passed it off as an animal and continued talking. Even though I was conversing, I could still hear the rustling getting louder. And it sounded like more than one entity was scrambling in the wilderness. I asked my friend why he looked so worried when he returned from pissing, but he refused to tell me. So I said enough is enough, and I grabbed his shirt and I demanded that he tell me what happened. So after he gulped, he spat it out finally. When he was outside, he saw some strange creature scavenging for food from a fellow camper. The creature, he says it looked like a raccoon, but its fur was white, and its eyes were bloodshot, and it appeared to have human teeth. He kept pushing so he could finish quickly, but the creature looked up. However, it was only for a few seconds before it went back to gorging down on a jar of Nutella. My friend took his advantage and ran back to our tent. The rustling was right next to us now. My friend and I were now in a dead, silent stare. The rustling died into footsteps, and a dark figure flashed on the door of our tent. Sweat started to bead on my forehead. I could hear my friend panting heavily next to me. Another silhouette appeared on the door. This one paused its marching. We could hear it sniffing the air. It moved an appendage towards the tent door and pulled back on it. It then sniffed again and continued walking. My friend decided he had to know what these figures looked like, so he leaned forward and slowly unzipped the tent door. He peered out of the small opening for only a minute or so, then pulled back. Yet another figure appeared. This one kept marching. After there was no sign of the figures, my friend lunged forward and zipped up the tent again. He then whispered to me what he had saw. A line of humanoid figures were marching. They each carried a spear and were all black except for their faces. He couldn't tell if it was a mask or their actual face, but the way he described it, it looked like the face of the creature he saw earlier. There was white fur, bloodshot eyes, and human teeth. A final figure, possibly a straggler, came dashing by. My friend concluded that the best thing we could do was go to sleep and wait till morning. So, I did my best. I turned over and shut my eyes tight, though the state of anxiety I was in brought nothing but nightmarish images to my head. I sat there as each scenario played through again and again of what was out there. I can't decide what was worse. The scenes in my head, or whatever was outside my tent.